Welcome to the new season of the Live Your Spa Life show. The SPA in Spa Life stands for Seek Power Always, that divine power within you to do what you're here to do. The theme for this season is intentional living. Amazing people like you share ways to live by design and with purpose to ensure that this short ride of life occurs with choice, physically, financially, spiritually, and in your relationships to create a world-class life. In these times of uncertainty, it's time for you to move past the distractions and start trusting yourself more through your God-giving knowingness. No one truly knows better what's best for you than you. In this season, you'll have plenty of examples of people choosing their best life and creating a positive impact through intentional living. Thank you for sharing your precious time with us and being part of the Live Your Spa Life conversation. With us today is Michelle Calvillo, a resilient and determined individual who has overcome significant challenges through her personal and professional journey. Despite being diagnosed with severe dyslexia during her adolescence, Michelle refused to let it hinder her success. She recognized her strength in building connections and collaboration, which led to a 25-year career in designing and developing programs and events to drive revenue growth for partner organizations at renowned tech giants like IBM and Zoom. Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Diane. Super excited to be here today.
Well, I am really great and excited, one, not only just to have you, but to really talk to our audiences who a lot of people can totally relate with where you're at today, is that how we move through challenges is often where the goal is at and just the gold that we can distill from that. And, following all the recent tech layoffs, you found yourself unemployed for the first time in 30 years. And you were just steadfast in creating your next opportunity. And you're really taking this time to paint a clear vision for your future. What does that look like for you now?
Yeah, so it came as quite a shock in February when I got laid off. Absolutely was not expecting to be in this situation. And when it first happened, there's of course the why me, right? And the fear that comes up of being a provider for my family and, wanting to ensure that I'm going to be able to continue the life that I've been living. As that fear percolated up inside of me, I really realized I had two choices, right? And I wrote about this on LinkedIn. Like, I could just allow myself to sink into that fear, or I could really face it and take a look at, who do I want to become on the other side of this? How do I want to allow this to push me into that resilient state of being? And so I've really taken the opportunity over the last few months to stop and think about, like, how do I want to show up in this next half of my career journey? Who do I want to be? And how can I do that authentically? And so, really thinking about having the opportunity to rise in the face of fear and using tools and techniques over the last few months to stay in that, right? Because on a day-to-day basis, you hop online, you see more layoffs happening, you realize how many people are being affected, receiving notices that you weren't selected. And so there's this constant kind of pummeling of your spirit throughout this journey of trying to find what's next. So, using tools that I've learned over the years just to stay in that place of empowerment, staying in the choice to continue to rise in the face of that fear.
Yes, I love that. Especially for, our listeners, whether or not you have maybe been, kicked out of the nest of where you're at, in a way that you didn't expect happening, or you might actually be in a place where where you're at's not a fit for you, and maybe it officially hasn't happened, but it's time for you to make that move. And Michelle, you've talked about kind of this nudge from the universe, right? And so when we start looking at things that are happening for us versus happening to us, and we look at, what are all of our skill sets, and, even for myself, I mean, I shattered my gun hand as a police officer, and, was forced into an early medical retirement. And, I've had that time. I've been in that place where you're like, this is who I am. This is what I've been doing. And what am I going to do different? Like, what does those pivots look like? And, the more we can look at it as an opportunity to be like, what parts have I not been expressing of myself? What would if I got to re-choose what I want to do, what do I get to do in doing that? So as part of that process, what have you been excited about, stepping forward into different aspects of yourself, of different ways of expression?
Yeah, there's definitely been some key things that I've been kind of investigating within myself, right? I mean, during my 18 months at Zoom, one of the beautiful things that Zoom had was a really strong DEI community and really strong employee resource groups. And so I've really had the opportunity to like think about how would I like to see that come further into my career, right? I've been running programs for years around partners and partnerships, but looking at, is there a way to allow that piece of who I am blossom more in my career and give back more in the community? Really diving into, I've been doing a lot of writing and journaling around like, what are my strengths? What are my, what brings me the most joy, right? What are the tasks that I do on a daily basis that bring me the most joy, right? Knowing that, we all have to work, right? To be a part of this economy and be a part of these lives, we have to work. So like, what's going to bring me the most joy? And is it, I don't ever want to believe that it's too late in life to reinvent myself either, right? Like that, and maybe this won't be the moment where that happens, but starting to put energy and intention into that. That's what I'd like to see where I could grow in my career. And just personally as well. How can I engage in my community? How can I engage in my personal life, in my local community, and become a bigger, have that be a bigger part of my life in general, and then see how I can also have that blossom towards career opportunities as well.
Such a great, insights, and to be able to look at the possibilities. I think now more than ever, we're seeing a lot more posts about people who are going into second and third careers, people who are looking at, their experience in their life, really looking in terms of, a lot of times people would look at age as, a discrimination type thing, or you're getting too old to do blah, blah, blah. But what we're seeing now is, I know people who went to law school in their 40s, like people who really stepped into knowing who they truly are in their 50s and 60s. I just interviewed Joel Weldon, who's one of the Hall of Fame speakers, who's turning 82, and he is still hitting the road doing because he loves it. And so
Right.
when we can really start seeing like how all of our experience comes together to have that impact, then people start snatching you up and they start seeing what it is that, all of your experience is a plus. And even the fact of being laid off or fired or any of those type of things, when you can weather those things with grace, you also show up in a different way. And one of the things I was so impressed with you about is how much you gave kudos to Zoom and how much you enjoyed it, whereas, there's a part of you and other people that may want to slam the person that did that, but to really embrace what you did take from that. And I really loved even just all the comments that people were saying about the things that they loved about you. And the list is long, about anywhere from, sad to seeing you go, grateful to have your experience, enjoyed working with you, how gifted and talented you are. That had to have warmed your heart to see the impact that you had in your work. So what are you taking away from those experiences?
Yeah, I think that, gosh, when every piece of my career has had such an impact on who I am, the people that have been on my career journey with me, and the relationships that I've had the opportunity to build. I always tell people that like one of my superpowers is relationship building, right? I absolutely love that element of who I am in my life is about building relationships with others, and that I get to walk away and take those with me, right? That it doesn't end when that door closes, right? And I think that is a big point of reference, right? If you leave somewhere and everything then is complete and over. And it doesn't follow you into your life. I don't know. There's something about that to me. Like I have people that 30 years ago, I built relationships with in my career that I am still in relationship with today, you know, that are still a part of my life, socially, personally. And, you know, there's a lot of people that really impacted my life at Zoom, at IBM. I still am in a relationship with a lot of people there. And so that's, you know, that's just something that's really important to me, building that type of, you know, loyalty, commitment, you know, having those relationships and hearing those words from people is also important, right? I mean, I can go back and look at, you know, if I'm having a bad day, you know, I'll pop into LinkedIn and look at some of the things that people have written about me, right? Or have said to me, because it'll lift my spirits up. Like, you know, I have this little mantra that I keep telling myself, I have value and worth to bring to this world, right? And there are some days where you feel a little kicked in the sand kicked in your face, right? There was one day I got 3 notices in one day, you know, you weren't selected, you're not the one, right? And it was like, oh, okay, I got to get back up. And so I went out and I read, you know, what some people have written about me over the years. And I'm like, I'm going to be all right. I have value and worth to bring to this world, right? I have something to offer. And, you know, my experience in my career has been, you know, just like you reaching out to me, you reached out to me and asked me to be on your podcast. And I thought, my first thought was, why me? Right? That was my first thought. Why would you want to talk to me? And then I stopped and remembered, you know what? People want to talk to me. People are attracted to my energy, my enthusiasm, my the just joy and authenticity that I bring into the world, right? That's where my career started, right? I mean, I was selling shoes at Macy's and one of my regular customers came to me and said, you can be so much more. There's so much opportunity out there for you. And they sponsored me into my first real sales job, right? And then I had another client that sponsored me into my next big career move, into being into programs. And so I know that having people have the opportunity to know me, to see me, like that's when my light shines, right? And I think we miss out on giving people those opportunities by simply looking at a resume or a skill set and not really looking at the whole person. Like, I think that we sometimes miss out on amazing people because we disqualify them before we even open the door to find out who they are.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, to your point, it's so important. Like, so many times people identify themselves with their job or their title and see themselves as that totality. And when we start looking at, you know, jobs can come and go, but who we're being as people, when we talk about like networking, I mean, networking is relationships. And when you see, you know, just as you mentioned, like the longevity of staying in contact with people, of showing that you care, of really people getting to see the essence of who you are, that's the first thing they see with you, right? That energy that you have and that positivity, and people are attracted to that. They want to have that in their life. And as we know, you know, part of the journey, there are those bumps and bruises along the way. And this is where, you know, this really helps our audience to be able to look at where they are in their life and, you know, what are some of the things that maybe they thought were kicking them down, but in hindsight, right, they look and see like, you know what, that actually led me to the next thing. That is actually, you know, having those experiences helped me in that. So that being said, you know, there are a lot of things that can disempower us or get us off track. You know, what are some of those things that were challenging to you that at the time maybe you didn't see the benefit of it, but you can see it now?
Yeah. You know, I mean, definitely one of the big ones, and I talked about this in my bio, is that, you know, growing up, I have severe dyslexia, and you know, it was a huge challenge in my life, right? I had to work harder than most of my peers around me, and that work ethic, that drive to keep pushing myself, right? I had, you know, as an adolescent, had people tell me I was dumb, you know, I mean, it was a different time period, right? There weren't the resources and things that there are for students today. And, you know, I really had to take that. And there was a point in my life where I just realized I am not going to let this stop me, right? I am not going to let this stop me. And that's the same spirit that I have today, right? Like being out of the work for the first time in 30 years, it's like, I'm not going to let this stop me, right? There is more that I have to give to this world, to this, to my family, to my life. Like, this is just a new beginning. And I know it wasn't the timing that I was expecting it to come in, but it just reminds me, right? I go back to that same young girl who was like, I am not going to let you define me. I'm not going to let this moment define me. It's only going to make me stronger. It's only going to make me better. And, and I really look at that. And I spend a lot of time working with women, mentoring women that are coming out of difficult situations in their lives, coming out of addiction and poverty and abusive relationships and things like that in my personal time, and helping them empower themselves. And, it was interesting when I lost my job, one of the women that I mentor said to me, so Michelle, did you make your list? Right. Cause I'm always telling them, like, make your list. What do you want to do? What's your vision? Like, where do you want to go next? And so, we were talking one day and she said, well, have you made your list yet? And so, it's like those relationships that also continue to empower me, right? Having those opportunities to have that give and that abundance reciprocated continually in my life.
Yes, absolutely. Well, when we start looking at, getting on the other side of that, and you spoke about, being empowered, and, there's nothing more kind of visceral than, things being in theory versus something you've actually experienced, right? And so when you actually have gone through these things and you've seen, like, the good days, the bad days, the ups, the downs, I feel invincible versus like, oh my God, who would want to connect with me? Like, we go through all of these different things. When you have that perspective, you can actually then more authentically share with these other women that you're helping, because you know where they're coming from. And that's the beauty of experience, is that, sometimes it's the toughest things that we experience are the most value in what we have to offer to other people. I mean, we've often heard, like, our mess is our message, right? Because if we've not had anything that's messy, how can we actually tell people how to move through it, how to maneuver through it, how to get to the other side of that? So, as your mentees have been coming to you and asking you to kind of compile this experience for you, what kind of distinctions have you seen come out of that?
Yeah. I think that some of the big things that I've had the opportunity to witness is just that every challenging opportunity in my life, I don't ever see it as a negative anymore. And I just look at every challenge that has come my way, that there's an opportunity for growth, right? And when I use that frame of mind, when I use that frame of growth is always an option. And it can be little things and it can be big things, right? That I can walk away from even the most painful experiences in my life and have learned something about myself, about who I am in relationship to the world or to other people. And then I can take those moments and just continue to move into that growth. And then pass that on, right? And I get that from my mentors as well, right? I mean, that reciprocation of the flow of abundance in the world, right? That is so important. And I was reading something the other day. Somebody was saying, like, mentorship is free, right? It's this beautiful reciprocal flow that should be happening in the world where, we should all be looking at how we can help others get further in their lives, right?
Yeah, absolutely. As you speak about, like, your mentors, who has been your greatest teacher on intentional and authentic living?
Oh, so my kiddo Joey, has absolutely been one of my greatest teachers. I decided to have a child later in life, and it was a very intentional decision to become a parent. And a few years ago, Joey came to us and said, I'm non-binary. I'm not living my true self, and I want to step into my true self. I need to change my name. And, witnessing that moment of them stepping into their, like truly stepping into authenticity and being able to like step through fear and open themselves up to us was like one of the most powerful moments in my life of, and then continuing to watch their journey unfold has just given me such clarity in my own life about the importance of doing that, of like how important it is, no matter what, to be myself, even if it's scary, even if I think somebody's not going to appreciate who I am, whether it's having pink hair or, or letting people know who I am and what I believe in, So they have absolutely been my greatest teacher, and it came, in the most unexpected way.
Right. I think what's interesting about, having conversations with our children is that they feel safe to share who they are, and to know that, that can change, right? So what's their truth today can be a different truth tomorrow, right? And so I think that's one of the things that is really helpful to be in the conversation with just anyone, but, particularly with our children, because as we know, we can go back to when our children were like 3 and they're like, I want to be a fighter, or I want to be an astronaut, right? And then it's like, if we would have said like, okay, we're going to put everything into you being this because this is what you said. And then, 5 years later, they're like, I never wanted to be that. Like, that isn't what I wanted to be. And so to meet people where they're at in the moment, to know that this isn't the end all be all, and that we don't want to necessarily be able to come with like the permanency, right? Because we are in flow, and we are being able to look at what the difference is of what's going on with us. And I think that, what's interesting in a time that we're in is that so many times people will say like, this is who I am in the moment. And then they're so identified with that they can't go back to like, hey, I actually did like who I was, and I was in a different phase, or different things were going on. And so to really be in the continuing journey of those things, I think that holding that space as a parent can be challenging, right? Because we have our perceptions of what we think we want for our children, then their input, then society, right? There's so many things that layer up on that. And so I think the more that we can be open to the full conversation and not just a slice of it, I think allows like for us all to grow in a lot of different ways.
Absolutely. And I just think about my own personal life journey, right? I'm definitely not who I was at 15. So I've definitely, learned so much about myself, and I'm grateful that I've had the opportunity in my own life to have people hold that space for me to find who I am and to celebrate each phase of my journey with me.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. So speaking of space, I often talk about, you've probably heard about this, about, how we look at life and how we look at our space in terms of, how we live in a bedroom or an office or kitchen. Like, what is your favorite home, your room in your home, and why?
So I'm going to cheat slightly because the room is 10 steps from my front door. But during the pandemic, my husband and I built my SPAlife. It's not a shed, it's a palace on our property. And it's my office. It's my creative space. It's my sanctuary. It's got a beautiful panoramic view of the Cascade Mountains out my front window. And it's one of the greatest gifts that my husband has ever gifted me. And I got to learn how to build a building. Like, I know how to build a house now, basically. So I think even things like that, right? Those opportunities to like learn about skills and our strength, right? I got to learn how to like roll trusses onto a building, which was a cool experience. Not something I ever did in my professional career, but there I was moving.
You can add that to your resume now.
Exactly. But So this is absolutely my favorite space and where you can find me the most often. So it's pretty special to me.
Awesome. So what's one thing that people are surprised to learn about you?
Oh, but I'm an introvert. I don't think when most people meet me, they would expect me to be an introvert because I'm very much, vivacious and alive, but most of the time I'm really an introvert, and moving into going into social spaces that aren't small and intimate can be very overwhelming for me. And yet I've spoken on stages of, with 20,000 people in the audience. So I think that that most people are pretty surprised when they find out I'm an introvert.
Yeah, I could see that. Definitely. So what's giving you hope now?
I think most of my hope today is just coming from a deep knowing that wherever this journey is going to lead, the end result is going to be good. I'm going to learn something from this experience, and that gives me hope, right? That I've already learned so much about myself in the 3 months since losing my job, and that I know that wherever I'm going to land, whatever is going to come next, that it's going to offer new growth. It's going to offer me the opportunity to continue to learn about myself, and I can only have gratitude for that.
So good. Well, Michelle, I just want to thank you for just sharing your journey and your wisdom. And I know there are going to be people wanting to bang down your door and connect with you and embrace you into their spaces and their experiences. How can they best do that?
So probably the easiest way right now is through LinkedIn. Michelle Calvillo on LinkedIn. And I also do, I do photography on the side for fun and love to do nature photography. So I do have an Instagram channel as well, which is Grateful Seeker. So I've provided that to you. So those are the main places at the moment where folks can find me.
Perfect. Well, as you know, our theme for this season is intentional living. So in what way are you living an intentional life today?
My biggest way that I'm living an intentional life, my word for this year was awakening. And so I've really been focused on kind of that deeper excavation of my spirit this year. And just speaking up and sharing my truth on whatever platform or way that I can, letting go of things that no longer serve me, commitments, relationships, etc., and really honoring a natural flow in my life. Like I've tried throughout my life to be really rigid or scheduled, or like, I need to wake up and do these 3 things. It just doesn't work for me. So honoring that through intentional living, that I'm finding flow of, in each moment. Like this morning, I was feeling a little anxious and nervous, and I was walking out to my office and I noticed these dewdrops on these leaves of blades of grass this morning. And so, I was down on the ground taking a picture of these beautiful dewdrops. Like that to me is intentional. Taking that moment to have gratitude, to honor that that connection to spirit is super important to me. And I also use my calendar a lot because connecting and connection with people is super important. So making sure that I've got quality time built into my calendar, both for self-care, for connecting with friends and family. Just making sure I'm very intentional about how I'm spending my moments.
So good. I'm a big fan of the calendar as well. I look at, whatever's on there is a reflection of your life and what you've chosen for yourself. So you don't ever want to say like, well, I have to do blah, blah, blah. You don't have to do anything, right? This is such a great opportunity to choose the things that we want to do. So I just want to thank you again for your time and energy with us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You got it. And to our listeners out there, is this the time for you to start evaluating, like, are you on the path that you want to be on? Do you want to make some changes? Is something coming down the pike because you're listening to your intuition that things aren't a fit for you and you want to expand into something else? Or maybe, you're looking at a change like Michelle is right now, and that you have a chance to reinvent yourself. Be proactive with that. Put your list out there. What do you want to be doing in the next phase of your life? Because as we know, life is short and we want to be able to enjoy and experience it on a much fuller level. So explore that today. Look and see what it is that's important to you. And until we connect again, live your spa life. Bye for now.